The morning sun peeked through the blinds as Elena Chen stood in front of her closet, pushing aside her usual expensive clothes. Today was different. Today, she wasn't the boss. At least, that's what everyone would think. At 35, Elena had built her tech company from nothing. Growing up in a small apartment where her parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, she learned early that hard work and smart thinking could change a person's life. Now, after years of success, she had just bought Luminex Technologies, a once great company that was losing its way. But instead of walking in with security guards and announcement emails, Elena had a different plan. "Are you sure about this?" her friend Rage asked over the phone as Elena pulled out a plain blue sweater and simple black pants. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed, "I own this place." "Completely sure," Elena replied, tucking her long dark hair into a simple ponytail. "The reports say morale is terrible there, high turnover, bad customer reviews. Something's wrong with how that place is run, and I won't see it if everyone's on their best behavior around the new boss." Elena had always believed that a company's heart was its people, not its profits or fancy offices, and to understand people, you had to walk in their shoes. An hour later, she parked her 10-year-old car, borrowed from her cousin, in the far corner of the Luminex parking lot, not in the reserved executive spaces she could rightfully claim. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her worn leather bag and stepped into her own company as a nobody. "You must be the new customer service rep," said a thin man with glasses at the reception desk, barely looking up from his computer. His name tag read Paul. "Yes, that's me. Elena Chen," she said with a smile that wasn't returned. Paul handed her a visitor badge. "5th floor. HR will process you." The elevator ride gave Elena time to observe. The walls needed painting. The floor buttons were worn to the point of illegibility. 3 employees rode with her, complaining about someone named Violet who thinks she runs the place and how they had to look busy because the new owner might show up any day now. Elena bit her lip to hide a smile. On the 5th floor, a harried-looking HR director named Tina greeted her. Tina was one of only 3 people in the entire company who knew Elena's true identity. "This is ridiculous," Tina whispered after closing her office door. "You're risking a lot. What if someone recognizes you from business magazines?" Elena shrugged. "I'm rarely in those, and when I am, I'm usually dressed very differently. Trust me, nobody expects the owner to show up as a customer service rep." Tina sighed, stamping forms with more force than necessary. 2 weeks of this charade then? While you, what? Get bullied by our middle management. While I learn, Elena corrected. No presentation or spreadsheet can show me who really keeps this place running, who causes problems, or why good people keep quitting. As Tina reluctantly processed her paperwork, Elena glanced out the window at the city skyline. She'd worked hard for her success, but never forgot what it felt like to be ignored and underestimated. Those memories made her a better leader. "Your direct supervisor is waiting in the customer service department," Tina said, handing over an employee handbook and ID badge. "His name is Roger Taylor. He doesn't know about, you know." "Perfect," Elena said, tucking the badge into her pocket. "Just so you know," Tina added quietly, "things aren't great here. This place used to be special. Now it's," her voice trailed off. "That's why I'm here," Elena replied, "to understand what went wrong before I try to fix it." Walking toward the customer service department, Elena noticed the worn carpet, the flickering lights, and the tired expressions of people passing by. Her company now, all of it. The good, the bad, and everything in between. What would she discover in the next 2 weeks? And would she regret this undercover mission when she faced the real, unfiltered Luminex culture? Only time would tell. For now, she was just Elena, the new hire, ready for her first day on the job, and completely unprepared for what was waiting for her. Elena followed the warn signs to the customer service department, her stomach tightening with each step. First impressions mattered, even when you secretly owned the place. The department was a maze of gray cubicles under buzzing fluorescent lights. A tall man with slicked back hair stood at the entrance, checking his expensive watch. His name tag read Roger Taylor, Department Supervisor. "You're 4 minutes late," he said without looking at her face. "I'm sorry, I was finishing up in HR." "Save it," Roger cut her off. "Orientation starts at 9 o'clock sharp." Not 9-4. He turned and walked away, clearly expecting her to follow. Elena took a deep breath. As CEO of her own company, nobody had spoken to her like that in years. She reminded herself this was exactly why she was here, to see the real Luminix, not the polished version presented in boardrooms. Roger pointed to a desk in the farthest corner. That's yours. Computer's old but works fine. Chair's a bit broken. We've ordered a new one. He hadn't, Elena knew, because she'd reviewed all purchase orders last week. The desk was dusty, tucked beside a constantly running printer that made a grinding noise. The chair tilted dangerously to one side, and the computer looked like it belonged in a museum. Team meeting in 5 minutes, Roger said before walking away to chat with a group of well-dressed employees near the window desks. Elena settled in, noticing how people glanced her way before whispering to each other. No one came to introduce themselves. She pulled out her notebook and headed to the conference room. Inside, people clustered in obvious friend groups, leaving a clear empty zone around the chair Elena chose. A woman in a designer suit stepped to the front of the room. Her perfume arrived before she did. "Welcome to another productive week," the woman announced. "I'm Violet Mills, Vice President of Operations. For our new team member," she glanced at a paper, deliberately mispronouncing, "Elena. We handle premium clients with premium service. I hope you can keep up." The meeting covered customer satisfaction scores, which Elena noticed was steadily dropping. When Violet asked for ideas to improve them, Elena raised her hand. "In my previous experience," Elena said carefully, "personalizing responses and following up within 24 hours increased customer happiness by nearly 30%. The room fell silent. Then Violet laughed. "Previous experience? Let me guess, some tiny little startup that handled what, 10 customers a day?" Snickers rippled through the room. Elena felt her cheeks warm but kept her expression neutral. "Actually, we handled thousands, but we made sure each one felt." "We don't need outdated methods here," Violet interrupted. "This is a real company with real processes." After the meeting, Elena returned to her desk. Someone had taken her notebook. Her computer password didn't work, forcing her to wait 45 minutes for it help. At lunchtime, she headed to the break room with a homemade sandwich. Conversation stopped when she entered. She smiled and sat at an empty table. Across the room, Violet and Roger huddled with others, occasionally glancing her way and smirking. "Don't mind them," a quiet voice said. A thin man with kind eyes sat across from her. "I'm Deepak from 8. That's the usual welcome for newcomers." "Does it get better?" Elena asked. Deepak shrugged. "For some. Depends if they decide they like you." "And how do they decide that?" "Usually by how useful you are to their careers or if you laugh at their jokes." He gave a sad smile. "I've been here 4 years. I keep my head down, fix their computers, and they mostly leave me alone." Elena nodded, watching Violet's group. They were talking about the new owner, her, speculating about another rich jerk who would make their lives miserable. "How did this place get so?" Elena trailed off. "Toxic," Deepak finished. "It wasn't always. Used to be different before the management changed 3 years ago." As lunch ended, Elena returned to find her chair now completely broken, collapsed on one side. She quietly fixed it as best she could, aware of stifled laughter from nearby cubicles. 1 day down, 13 to go. Elena opened a blank document and began typing, documenting everything she'd seen. This company needed more than new ownership. It needed a complete reset. By Friday, Elena had started a secret file on her personal phone, away from the company's prying eyes. Day 5, she whispered into her voice notes during a bathroom break. "Things are getting worse." That morning, she'd arrived to find her computer screen plastered with sticky notes reading "Try harder" and "Not good enough." Someone had also changed her desktop background to a cartoon of a woman crying. Elena took photos with her phone before removing them. When she logged in, her heart sank. The customer reports she'd spent hours on yesterday were gone, completely deleted from the system. She'd have to redo everything before the 3 p.m. deadline. "Computer troubles?" Roger asked, appearing suddenly behind her with a coffee in hand. The smirk on his face told her everything. Tech can be so unreliable. Elena nodded, keeping her face neutral though her stomach burned with anger. I'll manage. Of course you will, he said, walking away. Oh, by the way, Violet wants those reports by noon now, not 3 p.m. As Elena restarted her work, she noticed her name misspelled as Elena Cheap on the team roster hanging near the break room. She also found herself mysteriously removed from department email chains, learning about important changes only when it was almost too late. During the daily team call, Elena tried to share her screen to present customer feedback data. We can't see anything, Violet said impatiently after Elena had tried 3 times. I'm sorry, the system. Maybe technology isn't your strong suit, Violet interrupted. One, take over the presentation. Later, Deepak from it quietly told Elena, someone set your permissions to block screen sharing. I fixed it, but be careful. At lunch, Elena entered the break room and conversation instantly died. She'd grown used to this, but today felt different. The silence felt heavier. She took her usual corner seat and unwrapped her sandwich. Violet walked in with 2 other managers, laughing loudly. As they passed Elena's table, Violet's coffee cup tipped, spilling brown liquid all over Elena's only professional blazer, the one she'd planned to wear for an important department presentation later. Oh my! Violet gasped with exaggerated concern. What a terrible accident. I'm so clumsy sometimes. Her eyes told a different story. Elena grabbed napkins, dabbing at the spreading stain. No problem, she said evenly, though the blazer was clearly ruined. You have another jacket for the presentation, right? Violet asked sweetly. You wouldn't want to look unprofessional. They both knew Elena didn't have another jacket. She'd been wearing the same few outfits all week, part of her undercover role as a new employee who couldn't afford a fancy wardrobe. Walking back to her desk with the stained blazer, Elena passed a glass-walled meeting room where Roger was speaking to a group of managers. She slowed, catching fragments. New owner arrives next week. Need to show strong numbers. Adjust the customer satisfaction scores. She'll never notice. Elena lingered, pretending to check her phone while listening carefully. Were they planning to fake company data to impress her, not knowing she was already here? That evening, long after most employees had gone home, Elena used her owner's access codes to examine the company's financial reports. What she found made her blood run cold. Sales numbers inflated. Expenses hidden. Customer complaints erased. No wonder the business was struggling despite official reports showing success. A noise made her look up. The cleaning man, an older fellow with kind eyes, was watching her. Working late? He asked, emptying her trash can. Just catching up, Elena replied carefully. He nodded. I see a lot, working these late hours. People think I'm invisible. He gave her a meaningful look. The walls in the executive conference room. Not as soundproof as they think. Elena studied him. What's your name? Antonio. Been here 12 years. Longer than anyone. He leaned closer. If you want to know what's really happening here, meet me by the loading dock tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. before the bosses arrive. As he shuffled away, Elena stared at her screen. The web of lies was bigger than she'd imagined. What else would she discover in the coming week? Elena arrived at the loading dock at 6:55 a.m., her breath visible in the cool morning air. The company building looked different at this hour, quiet, almost peaceful, without the tension that filled its halls during working hours. Antonio appeared right at 7, carrying a thermos. Brought coffee, he said, pouring some into the cup and offering it to her. You look like you could use it. Thanks, Elena said, grateful for the warmth. You mentioned knowing what's really happening here. Antonio leaned against the wall. I've cleaned this building for 12 years, seen 4 different management teams. This one, he shook his head. Worst by far. He explained how Violet and Roger had arrived 3 years ago and quickly pushed out anyone who questioned their methods. Good people left or were fired. Those who remained either joined the bullying or kept quiet to protect their jobs. But that's not all, Antonio said, lowering his voice. There's money missing. Lots of it. How do you know? Elena asked, though her own late-night research had already uncovered financial problems. My daughter works at the bank where they have accounts. She can't tell me details, but she's worried. And I overhear things while cleaning the executive offices. Last week, Violet was yelling at someone about covering tracks before the new owner arrives. As they finished their coffee, Antonio said, "Be careful. They destroy anyone who threatens them." Throughout the day, Elena began noticing other employees who seemed uncomfortable with the toxic environment. During lunch, a woman from accounting sat nearby, nervously picking at her food. "You're Ling from accounting, right?" Elena asked. The woman looked startled that someone knew her name. "Yes, you're the new customer service rep." "Elena, mind if I join you?" Ling hesitated, then nodded. After some small talk, Elena carefully asked, "Do you like working here?" Ling glanced around to check who might be listening. "It used to be better," she whispered. "I've been worried about some of the numbers I'm seeing. Expenses that don't match receipts. Revenue that appears from nowhere." She leaned closer. "I wanted to report it, but the last person who questioned the books was fired the next day for unrelated reasons." "That sounds illegal," Elena said quietly. "It is." Ling's hands trembled slightly. "I have a family to support. I can't risk my job." Later that afternoon, Elena encountered a young man frantically trying to fix a jammed printer. His badge read Tom Product Development. "Need help?" Elena asked, recognizing a simple paper jam from her early career days. "Thanks," Tom said with relief as she fixed the problem. "I'm terrible with these machines." "No problem. I'm Elena from customer service." "Tom, I design new products." He hesitated, or try to. "My ideas keep getting rejected, then magically appear months later under someone else's name." "That's terrible," Elena said. Tom shrugged sadly. "Last month, my design for a new user interface was too complicated, according to Roger. Yesterday, Violet presented the exact same design as her own brilliant idea." As they talked, Deepak from it joined them, looking over his shoulder first. "You seem to be making friends with all the company outcasts," he joked, but his eyes were serious. "Just getting to know my colleagues," Elena replied. "Well, be careful which colleagues," Deepak warned. "Some are reporting your every move to Violet." Elena nodded, unsurprised. "Why does everyone put up with how things are here?" Deepak and Tom exchanged glances. "Jobs aren't easy to find," Tom said. "And they make examples of people who speak up," Deepak added. "Last year, our best programmer complained about Roger taking credit for her work. The next day, her computer was found with unauthorized downloads. She was fired and nearly faced legal charges before another IT guy admitted Roger had asked him to plant the files." As Elena walked back to her desk, she noticed Violet watching her from the hallway, eyes narrowed suspiciously. The pieces were coming together now. Beyond the bullying culture, there was something much worse happening at Luminix: fraud, theft, and intimidation. With just days before her planned reveal, Elena realized she wasn't just fixing a toxic workplace. She was stopping a criminal operation hiding behind a respected company name. Elena sat quietly as the department meeting began. Only 3 days remained before her planned reveal, and tension filled the air. She'd spent the night reviewing evidence she'd gathered, altered financial records, stolen product designs, and a long list of bullying incidents. Violet strode into the room wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than what a customer service rep made in 2 months. Behind her, Roger carried a stack of papers, a smug smile on his face. "Let's discuss our customer satisfaction numbers," Violet announced. "They're not where they need to be before our new owner arrives." She clicked through slides showing declining scores. Elena noticed immediately that the real numbers, which she'd seen in the system, were much worse than what Violet was presenting. "One person's area is particularly concerning," Violet continued, turning to face Elena. "Our newest team member has the lowest response rate and highest complaint ratio." Elena blinked in surprise. "That can't be right. I've completed all my assigned." "The numbers don't lie," Roger interrupted, passing out papers. "Here's the data breakdown by employee." Elena scanned the page, her stomach turning. According to this report, she'd handled half the calls she actually had and received complaints on 80% of them. It was completely fabricated. "I have records of my actual call numbers," Elena said calmly, pulling out her notebook where she'd tracked everything. Violet laughed. "Your personal notes against our system data, that's adorable." Several team members snickered. Others looked uncomfortable but remained silent. "Maybe customer service isn't for everyone," Roger suggested with fake concern. Some people just don't have what it takes. Elena took a deep breath. I'd like to present my actual performance data. That won't be necessary, Violet said sharply. We're recommending immediate termination based on these results. The room fell silent. Even those who usually joined the bullying looked shocked at how quickly this was happening. You can't just fire someone without proper review, Deepak spoke up from the back. Company policy requires. I'm well aware of company policy, Violet snapped. She turned to Elena with cold eyes. Incompetence is grounds for immediate dismissal. I've already spoken with HR. Elena remained calm, though her heart raced. May I at least defend myself with the correct numbers? Go ahead, Roger sighed dramatically, though it won't change anything. Elena opened her laptop and pulled up her tracking spreadsheet, which showed her actual call numbers, resolution rates, and customer feedback, all significantly better than what Violet had presented. As you can see, Elena began, my actual performance is. Violet suddenly stepped forward and slammed Elena's laptop close, nearly catching her fingers. Enough. No one's interested in your made-up data. She leaned down, her face inches from Elena's. Know your place, she hissed. People like you are replaceable. When the new owner arrives next week, I'll make sure your position is the first eliminated. Violet then knocked Elena's papers to the floor, sending them scattering across the room. This meeting is about results, not excuses. The room went completely quiet. A few people looked away in shame. Roger smirked openly. Elena slowly bent down and began gathering her papers. No one moved to help her. Meeting dismissed, Violet announced. Elena, clear out your desk by noon. As people filed out, whispering among themselves, Elena noticed Lynn from accounting briefly touch her shoulder in silent support. Tom from product development dropped a small note on the floor beside her that read, Not right. We should do something. Alone in the conference room, Elena pulled out her phone and sent a simple text to her attorney, time to move forward. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. She finished collecting her papers, her mind made up. The undercover mission had shown her more than she expected, not just a toxic culture, but a corrupt leadership that needed to be removed immediately. Tomorrow, Violet and Roger would learn exactly who they'd been bullying. But tonight, Elena had evidence to organize and a company to save. Elena woke before her alarm, the morning sun barely peeking through her curtains. Today, everything would change. She opened her closet and pushed aside the simple clothes she'd been wearing for 2 weeks. At the back hung an outfit she'd saved for this moment, a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. As she dressed, she thought about all she'd learned. The bullying had been bad enough, but the financial fraud and employee mistreatment were criminal. Her phone buzzed with a text from her attorney, Priya, everything ready, security team in place. Elena drove her own car today, not the borrowed one she'd been using. She pulled into the parking space marked reserved for CEO and smiled as the security guard did a double take, then quickly checked his phone and nodded respectfully. At 8:30 a.m., employees arriving for work found a notice on the main doors, mandatory company meeting, 9:00 a.m., main conference room. Rumors spread quickly through the building. Some whispered about mass layoffs. Others hoped the new owner had finally arrived. Violet stormed through the office, her face twisted with anger. Who called this meeting? I didn't authorize this. Roger followed behind her, checking his phone nervously. It came from the executive office, maybe the board, or the new owner is here early. By 8:55, the large conference room was packed. Violet and Roger sat at the front, whispering urgently. People kept glancing at the door, wondering who would enter. At exactly 9:00, the door opened. Tina from HR entered first, followed by a distinguished older man in a suit, the company lawyer. Then came a woman none of them had seen before, Priya, Elena's attorney. Lastly, Elena walked in, transformed from the simple customer service rep they'd known into an entirely different person. Gone were the plain clothes and pulled back hair. Instead, she wore her designer suit, her hair perfectly styled, her walk confident and purposeful. A shocked murmur spread through the room as she walked to the head of the table. Violet's face drained of color. Roger's mouth hung open. Good morning, everyone, Elena said, her voice clear and strong. For those who don't know me, I'm Elena Chen, CEO of Meridian Holdings and the new owner of Luminex Technologies. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Someone dropped a coffee cup, spilling liquid across the floor. 2 weeks ago, I began working here as a customer service representative to understand this company from the inside before making changes. What I found was deeply troubling. Elena nodded to Priya, who distributed folders to everyone in the room. These contain evidence of financial fraud, workplace harassment, and intellectual property theft occurring under the current management. Violet jumped to her feet. This is ridiculous. You can't just... Actually, I can, Elena interrupted calmly. As the legal owner of this company, I have every right to investigate wrongdoing. She pressed a button on a remote, and the screen behind her lit up with security footage. Everyone watched as Violet deliberately spilled coffee on Elena's blazer, as Roger instructed someone to delete Elena's reports, as both of them openly mocked employees who weren't in the room. This is just a small sample, Elena said as the footage ended. My team has uncovered financial records showing nearly $3 million diverted to unauthorized accounts over the past 2 years. The company lawyer stood. Ms. Mills and Mr. Taylor, security will escort you to clean out your desks. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. You can't do this, Roger shouted, his face red with anger. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Elena smiled slightly. I think that was precisely your mistake. You had no idea who you were dealing with. Security guards appeared at the door. Violet looked around desperately for supporters, but found none. Even her usual allies stared at their laps, avoiding her gaze. This company is changing, starting today, Elena continued as Violet and Rojo were escorted out. Bullying, fraud, and theft have no place in my organization. She turned her attention back to the remaining employees, many of whom looked shocked, confused, or hopeful. Now, Elena said, let's talk about the future of Luminex and how we rebuild what these people tried to destroy. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. Elena stood at the window of her office, the same space that Violet had once occupied, though it looked entirely different now. Gone were the cold, intimidating furnishings, replaced with comfortable chairs and plants that made visitors feel welcome rather than afraid. Outside, the summer sun warmed the newly renovated courtyard where employees gathered for lunch. Laughter drifted up, a sound that had been rare in the old Luminex. A knock on her door pulled Elena from her thoughts. Deepak entered, no longer the nervous it guy, but now the confident head of the company's new cybersecurity division. The quarterly reports are ready, he said, placing a tablet on her desk. Profits are up 34% from last year. Elena smiled. And employee satisfaction? Up 67%. Turns out people work better when they're not terrified all day. Elena laughed. Who would have thought? The transformation hadn't been easy. After that dramatic morning when Elena revealed her identity, many employees feared they'd simply traded one tough boss for another. Trust had to be rebuilt from the ground up. Her first act as the public CEO had been to create an anonymous reporting system for workplace issues. Her second was to promote the people who'd shown integrity during her undercover days. Ling now headed the finance department, implementing strict new controls to prevent fraud. Tom led product innovation with full credit for his designs. Antonio, the cleaning man who'd first tipped her off, had been given a new position as facilities manager with better pay and hours. The office space itself had changed too. The dingy break room was now a bright gathering space with free coffee and healthy snacks. The worn carpets were replaced, the lighting improved, and the broken furniture fixed. We're ready for the anniversary meeting whenever you are, Deepak said, checking his watch. In the large conference room, the same one where Violet had humiliated Elena 6 months ago, the entire company now gathered. Faces that had once been stressed and fearful were now relaxed and engaged. Elena took a deep breath before stepping to the front. Public speaking had never been her favorite thing, but this was important. 1 year ago today, I signed the papers to buy this company, she began. 6 months ago, I revealed who I really was after working alongside you as just Elena from customer service. People smiled, some still amazed by the memory of that day. I learned more in those 2 weeks undercover than I would have in years of executive meetings. I learned who the real heroes of this company were, the ones who did their jobs with pride despite being treated poorly, the ones who helped newcomers even when it wasn't rewarded, the ones who saw problems but had no way to fix them. She looked around the room, meeting eyes with the people who'd shown her small kindnesses during those difficult days. Today, our company is thriving not because I'm some brilliant owner, but because all of you finally have the chance to do your best work without fear. The ideas that were once ignored are now our best-selling products. The financial stability we enjoy comes from honest accounting and fair practices. Elena picked up a small plaque from the table, which is why today I'm renaming our annual Innovation Award after the lesson I learned here. The Undercover Award for the employee who makes the biggest difference without seeking recognition. The room broke into applause. As people mingled after the meeting, Elena overheard snippets of conversation about weekend plans, family events, and creative new projects. Normal workplace talk that had been impossible in the old toxic environment. Later that evening, as Elena packed up to leave, she received an interesting email. It seemed that Violet and Roger hadn't learned their lesson. After being fired from Luminex, they'd landed executive positions at another company across town, which was now struggling with employee complaints and financial problems. Elena smiled to herself as she typed a reply to the email. Yes, I would be interested in buying that company too. And yes, I'll be starting undercover again. Some lessons, it seemed, could only be learned the hard way.